Sorry, 6:06 p.m. And we'll start with roll call. Go by ward, starting in Ward 1.
Megan.
Vincent here.
Arriaga here.
Gonzalez here.
Dennis here.
Frazier here.
All right, Madam Secretary, certify that we have a quorum. Please let the record reflect that Councilmember Lopez and Councilmember Jones are absent. I have a motion to excuse the two.
So
Second.
Okay, is that a motion by Pinson?
Vincent, yeah.
Y'all gonna have to bear with me. It's hard to tell. Motion by Pinson and a second by
Dennis.
Dennis. If there's nothing, no other comments, then I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Vincent, yes.
Megan, yes.
Forrest?
Same
Dennis, yes.
direction.
Frazier, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I didn't lay that out. I guess try to. There's no real rhyme or reason on the screen. We were working with that today to get everybody in order, and just won't work. So please let the record reflect that Council Members Lopez and Councilmember Jones are both excused.
If it's like the
Welcome.
EDC meeting, if
Welcome.
it's like the EDC meeting we had, the last two votes we got in the right order.
That's right. That's right. Welcome to everybody to the first ever, I think, televised, semi-televised council meeting of Elgin, Texas. Yeah, a lot of groundbreaking things this council has done. Bear with us. We're on the technical. I think we've got everything worked out, but I think this should be pretty smooth for a first time effort. Mary, would you like to lead us in the invocation, please? We're going to skip the pledge this time, unless y'all all want to stand up and look at my flag behind me. Let's see, Mary, I think you're muted. Can you unmute it?
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Okay. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, Lord, we come to you with bowed heads and humble hearts. Lord, we come thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us. Thank you, Lord, for blessing us to see another day. We pray your blessings, Lord, upon this meeting. Bless it to be what you have it to be. Pray your blessings upon our city and our county and our country. Bless us to make it through this situation that we're in. Cover us with your loving arms of protection. Lead us, guide us, keep us safe in your care as we live from day to day. These and other blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Has anybody signed up for public comments?
No.
No? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the city manager's report. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been on this thing all day and not have one glitch, and now I'm not getting it right. Are y'all hearing me okay? Can y'all hear me?
I hear.
I'm having to talk on the phone and do my presentation, but I'll try to get through it here. So our first item on the agenda was we just wanted to give an opportunity to talk through this current status of the coronavirus situation and the city's response to that. We've obviously been really busy, and I know you know that we've shared a lot of information with you about what's going on and what we're doing, and at times there's been a little challenge to have that information, but that's really what I think our role primarily in this whole situation is with our public, with our citizenry, is to We don't have the answers to many things. The orders that are being issued that we're subject to, we don't have the answers to a lot of those, but we do have information, and we're trying to share that information. But so far, all things considered, relative to the situation we see all over, I think Elgin's fared pretty well. We do have a number of have had a number of positive test cases here, but as far as the city's response to that and what we can do and what we continue to do, I think has been pretty good, and we base that in a large way on the feedback that we've received from our residents. But so tonight, I just wanted to have an opportunity to allow the council to ask any questions or make any comments about the situation. But we thought we would touch on three main areas that may be of concern or of interest to people. One would be our financial situation and how we currently assess that. Of course, the law enforcement end of this whole situation and how we're dealing with that. And then the public information and the information we're sharing with the public and the feedback we're getting from that. So I'm going to have the applicable department heads speak to each one of those items, and then but I think the council should feel free to, either way, we can hold the questions to the end or jump in at any time if you have one. So first off is going to be Charles, give you a quick assessment of where we think we stand. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, the main thing that I want to relate to you is that we are monitoring the situation pretty carefully. And the critical thing, of course, is the impact this whole thing is going to have on our revenue. So I've spent some time in looking at comparing what our revenue to date is in the major sources versus what we collected in prior years when we didn't have this problem. And considering that 92% of our revenue comes from fairly stable sources, which is property tax, sales tax, franchise fees, actually development fees, and the interfund transfer, particularly from the water fund. We're doing quite well in all of those areas. And in property tax, for example, I compared our collection rate to date versus the average of the last 10 years. And we're right on track with the collections that we have to date. So that being the major revenue source for the city, I don't think we're going to have a huge problem there. Some of the delinquent taxes may be a little bit short or slow in coming in, but we've already got the bulk of it, and so I think we'll be pretty good, pretty safe in that area. Another area which might be of some concern is sales tax. Tracking that, comparing last year with this year, we're actually way ahead of what we had last year. In fact, we've built up about a 10% cushion going forward, and unless the bottom completely falls out over the next 3 or 4 months, which I don't think it will, we should be okay in sales tax. So if actually 96% of the expected revenue is doing either performing as well or better than last year, the sales tax is the only thing that we have to look at to be a little wary of. But even at that, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. For the most part, on the sales tax, our biggest contributors are, of course, HEB and Walmart. And those are actually doing fairly well, so I don't think we have a problem in that area. But this is something that we'll keep monitoring every month by month and see if there's a significant drop off. And if there is, then we'll still have enough time to make some adjustments in the expenditures as we go along. On the expenditure side, excuse me, somebody have a question? No.
No, go ahead.
On the expenditure side, we have, we're tracking pretty well with what was originally budgeted. I'm still waiting to do the First Amendment to see how some of this shakes out. Things like on fuel expenses, for example, I had bumped up that quite a bit from last year in anticipation that the fuel rates were gonna go up. They've actually gone down and our use has gone down. So we do have a little bit of surplus in that area. We do have salary savings in particular areas. One of the things that I think Tom is going to talk about in the swimming pool, that operation, there may be an opportunity for a little bit of savings there. If we don't, obviously we're going to put off opening, but if we do open, it'll be at somewhat of a diminished hour. So I think overall, I can say with pretty much confidence that for this year, looking at the revenue and expenses on both the utility fund and the general fund, that we're in fairly good shape, all things considered right now. But we are monitoring that, and if something comes up, then we'll get back to you with some adjustments that we may have to make on the expenditure side.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Anybody have any questions for Charles on any of that?
I've got one, Tom.
Go ahead, Juan.
Of course, our new budget's gonna have to reflect unknowns for you, I guess. I mean, at this point, because I'm sure you were counting on either the same revenue from last year or maybe more, but the way it looks, it'd probably be less.
No, but we haven't depended on any surplus for balancing this year's budget. What will happen, and you're right about next year. Next year is going to be more of a challenge to us because there'll be a lot of less unknowns and what's going to happen. But for this year, the budget was done using any fund balance. So
And I think I misspoke. I did mean the next budget. So I mean, we're talking about people not paying utilities, property taxes, stuff like that we have to account for.
that's correct. I suspect, depending on how things play out, because this is all uncharted territory for everybody, and we don't know really what the impact is going to be. I mean, if things get worse, if there's a second wave and it hits people right when they would normally be paying their taxes that are due in January, that may be an issue in on the property tax side. So I would recommend, I hadn't really talked to Tom about this, but I'm thinking about having two budgets, one a normal budget and then one a kind of a backup based on some worst case scenarios, just in case. Of course, we can go ahead and adopt the regular one going forward, but at least have that one in reserve, that in the event there is a second wave and it is worse than this one, then we'll have to go to phase two, that budget process.
One more question, Tom.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there any relief from either the state or federal that you think might be coming down the pipe this season?
What I've been monitoring, they said there's little likelihood of that. The Democrats are trying to propose, I think, another $500 billion program specifically targeted for local, state and local governments. I'm not sure that's been, that was their original intent in this last package, but that got dropped out. So I don't know what the chances of that being approved going forward are, but certainly we'd be for it if we could get some funds, but I'm not sure what the opportunities or the chances of that happening are going forward.
Yeah, I think it's an issue that is again a unique part of this coronavirus. We continue to track our expenditures, and hopefully we'll get some disaster relief funds available for that at some point in the future. But that takes a long time for those funds to flow. But again, the unique part about this one is typically when the federal government makes relief funds like that available, it's because a certain area, a region, a state has been hit hard by an event. This is one where everybody across the country is going to be hit hard in a comparable way. So what's going to be, I'm not sure it's going to be affordable for the federal government to provide a whole lot of help to everybody. So, but we're on top of that. TML is always trying to share whatever information we get about it, but that's a big unknown moving forward. All right, any other questions? Well, we're going to circle around to the end. We can talk more at the end if you have any other ones too. All right, well, next Chief South is going to give you a little briefing on where we stand from a law enforcement standpoint. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, so enforcement in the current coronavirus issues and situations we're having with the OC, the OC was originally established to deal with a medical issue, and they've done a very good job at doing that. The enforcement aspect of it has been a bit lacking. So we're working through a number of challenges. We've had a number of meetings with both Judge Poppy, the district attorney, and others to try to get and facilitate the information we need to ultimately hold some of the more significant individuals who are causing issues accountable. There's two classes that we're dealing with mainly, is those that are violating direct orders, the containment orders, and those who secondarily are violating mask and gathering orders. Right now, as we stand, we have not filed any charges against any individual, nor do we have the information to be able to file charges against any individual at this time. We're working through that, and we will continue to do the best we can. But right now, I don't anticipate any charges being able to be filed in the near future.
One question, Tom, when you get a chance. Chief, I read somewhere where the state prison system isn't taking prisoners from counties anymore. Is that correct, or how is that affecting us?
I haven't heard anything about that from Sheriff Cook, and the jail is currently open. We do take prisoners there. There's a process for that to be able to do it, and I'm sure there's a process for them to be able to transfer prisoners accordingly. Obviously, because of the virus, we're taking very specific steps to ensure that does not contaminate the jail population, and so far we haven't had any issues.
Thank you.
Chief, you might talk a little bit more about our own situation here in town. So far, things made pretty calm. Our staffing is still good. We haven't had a lot of activity outside of these couple of the cases you talked about. But in general, would you say folks are being pretty compliant, and businesses as well?
I'd say 99.5% of the community is engaging in compliance with what we're trying to achieve. Everybody gets it and understands. We have a lot of through traffic through the town, so some folks don't know what orders have been given in the county, but at the same time, they're being very compliant and respectful of what we're doing. We haven't had any issues come up at any of the supermarkets, Walmart, or any other shopping areas that would be significant. And the vast majority of the community is being extraordinarily supportive of what we're doing.
Okay, good. Any other questions for the chief?
Tom, I've
Yeah,
got
go
a quick
ahead.
question, and it's not necessarily virus related, but I was wondering if we had a representative at the San Marcos
Funeral.
the funeral on Tuesday, or the movement of the body.
We did not have a representative. I did contact the authority. They had significant coverage for that already. I did volunteer our services, but they had sufficient coverage for it, so we did not participate.
Okay, thank you.
Next up is Amy Miller's going to give us a little briefing on Amy. I think, as you know, has kind of shifted over to a full-time public information officer from her prior duties, and has served us really well in helping us keep current on all the information that's being put out, and her and Brooke have done an excellent job on our website and social media. So I thought she'd just share a little bit with you about her experiences, and she's probably the one that has a little more direct contact with citizens through social media. And again, I think she would echo the chief's comments that so far folks tried to be part of the team, and we haven't heard a lot of negativity. And in fact, most of that is folks getting on each other about wearing masks and stuff like that, and they're leaving the city out of it. So, which is it's a good thing. So, Amy, go ahead.
Hello, Mayor, Council, and our City Manager. So the Bastrop County set up an emergency operations center, and that included creating a joint information center. So throughout this COVID crisis, I have been working with others throughout the county on the information that needs to get out to the community. And there has been some coordinated efforts towards messaging and the priority of information. And that's been a successful thing. We set up a specific section on the city's webpage for COVID-19. And our goal with that platform and creating that was to put it in one place, comprehensive, reliable information that the community could look to in a number of areas. So it has overall information, it has specific business resources, specific resources for people. It looks at helping folks connect with other reliable information sources, offers connections for social media, connects to our school districts, ACC. And so it is intended to be an overall landing point where, again, the community knows that they can receive reliable information. We also have taken on, through our social media platforms, promoting the information there. And so we have a Twitter, an Instagram, and a...
Do I hear a second?
The Chihuahua?
Big Chihuahua.
I'm taking care of the dog there, apologize. So on the social media platforms, it's seen tremendous engagement. We've had a really significant level of participation. It has, in general, been very positive, with folks in support of and trying to help educate each other about the various directives and encouraging the dissemination of the information about what to do. We've had a coordinated effort with the EDC and the Chamber of Commerce related to business information, where we've been holding weekly business update calls that the businesses can call in, and we share information that's specific to them. And then we make sure that they have an opportunity to contact us with questions and do follow-up for them. And then we have also worked together to compile the restaurant list and the operations list that are available on our websites, and continuing to keep those updated. So there's been some really good overall coordinated efforts, and it's been a really good team effort to put things out. I would say the one final overall project that's continued through all this is the census, and encouraging people to complete the census and continuing that messaging. And that's, of course, countywide that we're working on that as well. So,
Anybody have any questions for Amy about that? Well, I'd just like kind of wrap up the conversation. Let's say a few things. We also continue to be in touch with our builders and developers that have projects going on in the community, and so far the information we're all getting from them is is that they're ready to move full steam ahead. We continue to see permits getting issued, development plans being submitted. We are going to be, I think, any part of this business question that we're going to deal with moving forward. I think not only Elgin, but my theory is in Texas in general is going to experience some problems with whenever there's a national company or national investors involved in the projects who are assessing things. Folks from the Midwest, from New York City, it's going to be hard for them to understand. I think initially that the transition may be quicker here in Texas and our economy will come back. So there's naturally going to be some hesitation that we may experience, I think, but so far we're not hearing any of that or seeing any of that. And all our projects seem to be on target. But in spite of all this and all this work we're making, we are, I think, beginning to talk about the transition of what everybody says of how we at some point we might get back to whatever normal will be moving forward for city operations. And we're beginning that conversation now, but I think that we've come to the conclusion that unlike the big steps we made to get to our level 2 on our readiness plan, it's not likely going to be as simple as just moving back to level 3 and such. I think it'll be a very gradual transitional thing that almost is going to vary from department to department. But I do think a big part of our thinking right now has to do a lot with what we just talked about in this report, in that we're not hearing a lot of complaints. We believe that we're being responsive to our citizens' needs. We're issuing permits. We're providing the basic services. We're not seeing a lot of big negative feedback on people missing out on virtually anything service-wise. So again, that adds up to not really adding pressure to us to try to return very quickly. We believe that we have that opportunity to take our time, but I want council to know that we're at least starting to think about that. We think it's our obligation to try to figure out what kind of baby steps might be in the offing in the near future. But that's certainly not anything that's going to happen tomorrow or next week. We'll transition, obviously try to follow the lead of the governor and the county judge as we have from the beginning. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I guess that's the wrap up. We welcome comments, welcome suggestions or questions. I don't know, Chris, if you had anything you wanted to add to all that, or we left out anything. Oh, before I do that, I'm sorry. I did have one thing that we have talked about as a staff that is an example of what this transitional thing will be that I think everybody can relate to. And that has to do with, as Charles said, I think he was the one that mentioned earlier, the swimming pool, the city swimming pool this year, and what are we going to be able to open that this year? Does it make sense to open it? The business end of that is, while that we typically see that as a summer, June, July, August type of situation. Obviously, there's a operational ramp up to that, hiring of lifeguards, a lot of preparations that go into that, and so we'll have to make a decision about that sooner than later. And one of those decisions may be, if we can't open the pool till July 15th, then it just doesn't make sense business-wise to go to that expense and effort to open it at all this summer. So we just thought that's a good example of something that I think everybody, the schools, different people are faced with challenges now, where we talk about something happening in August or September, and we think that seems like a long time off. But operationally speaking, we really will have to make a decision about the pool sometime in the next 30 days about what's going to happen, how that's going to happen. So those are the kind of things that when we talk about transition, it may be something that people won't see for a few months, but something we'll have to decide about now. So I don't see us I'm not really excited about having to make the decision myself about whether or not we're going to close the pool. So don't be surprised I don't come bring this back to y'all to ask for some guidance. So I guess I'm bringing that up again as a clear example, but also for something that y'all can be pondering about as well. So with that, Chris, I'll let you, I know you've been heavily involved with the staff all the way through this, so I don't know if you thought we left out anything, but any part of this, we're open to discuss.
I've got to admit, my brain is a bit fried with all of it. It is literally something new every day. Some angle of this we didn't haven't anticipated, or just a new topic all the time. But I would think most of I'm sure from what I've talked to a lot of y'all or heard a lot of you say is that there's a big concern about enforcement, the masks and all that. That there's we're now not the only county dealing with that. There's some pretty major news of some of that starting to happen, and I was waiting for when the domino would drop on something big, that just we didn't see happening, as we moved into all these new things. So I would say continue to watch what's going on around, and hopefully by the time we get it all figured out, we won't need to worry about it anymore. Does anybody have any other questions, virus or otherwise?
Yeah, I have just one more question, I guess. Yeah. Have we thought far enough out to talk about Hog-Eye Festival and what we are? I know we start making some pretty good commitments early on, so that might be a question for Amy.
Yeah, that's another example. Amy, you can jump in there. I think, what'd you tell me? July 1, the deadline to pick?
Yes, the Main Street Board has been meeting virtually, and their conclusion is that they'll make a decision right at the 1st of July. They feel confident that if it is able to be held, and they're certainly very hopeful that it will, that they could pull all the parts together if they make that call at the beginning of July.
Okay, is that good, Forrest? All right. Anything else before we move on?
I guess I would just say on this, Chris, as you know, we've said it before, but I emphasize with the council, I know you're saying we're dependent on y'all to ask us questions or ask for information if you need any. We hope we're keeping you up to speed on at least what information we have and what's productive for you to know about, but don't hesitate to call me if you have any other questions. So I think the next item on the manager's report is the investment report. Is that right? Charles, are you up? I lost my agenda here.
Yeah, that's the next item on the agenda. I think there is a problem though, because when I clicked on it on the agenda, that the report itself didn't come up. I don't know if anybody else had that same problem, or I was the only one that had that problem. But
what, do you want to wait till the next meeting?
Yeah, I had that problem too.
Yeah, there's no real urgency on that. We can just push it off to the next meeting.
Okay. The next item is our annual budget development calendar that you have. We put in the packets that we get to council every year. I think, as Juan was mentioning earlier, it's Charles. It's going to be an important budget year for us. While we're thinking that we can continue this way through the current fiscal year, certainly next year is likely to be a very big challenge for us. And so we will likely see, probably need a little more activity from council than what we had in the past, more discussions. But right now we continue you'll see the pattern is pretty much the same. We try to stick to generally our Tuesday night meeting, but the main point is that we have the way the system is and the way our charter requires, we always have to have that one special meeting at the end of September, but the rest are on Tuesdays, and of course we can have as many work sessions as we need moving forward. So unless anybody had any questions about that.
No.
Okay, well, we'll go on then. Just my last item on the report is that one little idea that we have thrown around again that I'd like y'all to think about is we've had some conversation about moving our polling place from the library here in town to the Fleming Center. This came up. I know that's been discussed and sporadically in the past, and what has caused it to come up here lately is, as you know, we're in the process of remodeling that room that we use as our polling center for a permanent city council chamber. And while I think we'll still be able to use it if we want to as a polling place, we have had the conversation with the elections administrator about the possibilities. And I guess what's newsworthy about it for me is that I've talked about that and done that a few times in the past, but it was always ended up being way too cumbersome of a project, mainly because you had to get Justice Department formal authorization to move your polling place. And I found out in a conversation just this week that law changed a couple of years ago, and now it truly is a local decision. So now we have council has a whole lot more discretion than you used to on something like that. So it's just a discussion item for y'all to think about. It won't, once we put the permanent dais and the things we're doing in that room, that's why we've changed it to not be public access room. It won't be quite as functional. And as we know too, the use of the Fleming Center has changed significantly with the rec center. It's a lot more available now than it used to be. So nothing to act on or really even, I know you all are hearing that for the first time tonight. I just throw it out there for something for y'all to be thinking about as a possibility. With that, Mayor, that's all I had on my report, unless there are any other questions or information for me.
I wanted to say something about the election.
Sure.
Am I too loud?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, the library is a common place for everyone to know where to go to vote for at, a location. And I mean, the Fleming, we have so many people that has relocated into Elgin that wasn't born and raised here that don't know about Fleming. I mean, I didn't know that we were changing the library and civic center into council chambers. And, but if we do anything, I would like to see it at least, after this year's election's done. I wouldn't want to change it anytime right now. If at all possible.
You're saying postpone the changing of it?
I'm saying to move the polling places from the library to somewhere else. I wouldn't want to interfere with that in this year's elections.
But you're saying if we do it, wait till after November?
Yes.
Tom, is it a construction issue or a usability issue?
It's not really an issue. It's just, it's my understanding that scenario has been discussed before. As we've talked about, we're making permanent improvements to the what's it been called, community center room, and it just won't be an open room. it'll still be usable. We can still use it as a polling place. It's just, it's the combination of making that change there. Clearly, we all know as we grow, all our growth is going to happen west of town. Fleming or those areas will probably ultimately be more of the physical center of town as we continue to move west. But there's no requirement to change, no pressure to change. It's just when we're in the middle of making this transition on the council chamber, it's just something to throw out to talk about.
The usability.
I think Sue had
the
a question.
use of Fleming is basically, since the rec center, there's not as much going on, and it's a little bit. But I'm with you though, Mary. I think it is going to be a change. It's going to change one day more than likely, and I think it's going to be a hard one. The good thing about moving to Fleming is, if somebody does go to the library, they're only 2 blocks away, from being at the new spot. But I agree. I think I'm more worried about the response from the public whenever when that room's no longer available as a community room.
That also, yeah.
But we can't. I think we can't really stay where we're at from a council standpoint. It's not exactly fair. We're comfortable, but our citizens, with everything going on, I think you're going to start seeing people wanting more space when they have to be around each other, and we don't get that when there's no crowd.
Yeah.
Where we're at now. So plus we could use the office space, in the current chambers with expansion. So, but it's something to think about. Both two sides of that story. I had the same reaction when I heard. Anybody else comment or questions on that?
Okay, I'm sorry, Mary, I think we talked about it when you were out with your sister. I think that's why
That's what it
you
was.
just so you know, nobody,
I think that's the
we
last
did
time
this,
we all met.
I think it was when you were with your sister.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But the other thing is, if we leave it there and we know that we're going to have our council meetings there, and there's the Tuesdays when they're going to conflict, so they're going to have to be flip-flop back and forth.
That's right.
It's good comments. It's just a FYI right now, right, Tom?
Oh yeah, it's just a suggestion that I do think if there was interest in moving, we should do it now, while we're in the middle of making these other changes. But it's certainly not. It's not a problem from the staff standpoint to keep it where it is. I just think, and probably I think once we get the room done and we have an election there, then it'll be more obvious that it'll be a different facility. So.
I don't know about
But
y'all,
yeah, I didn't intend to initiate a big conversation. I just thought it was something to think about and give us some feedback. So I hear you.
So has construction already started in the library, or what's the timeline?
Yeah, we've started some. Of course, is another thing that COVID, literally the week we were it was going to be a spring break project, frankly, when people were out, we had more people available, and then when COVID got in the way, the whole thing got delayed. So, but we're hopeful we can get back on it, and Michael will be mad because I'm saying this, but our goal is to get in there by July, I think, have our first meeting then in there.
Yeah, I think once we see the layout and all that sort of thing, we'll be able to tell whether it makes sense or not to push
Sure.
to have it.
Okay, that's all I had in my report, Mayor.
We're good, council, on that? All right, then we'll move this to the consent agenda. We got one item on the consent agenda, which is the minutes for March 17th and March 23rd. Sue, I didn't see a revision. Did you see anything?
No, sir, I'm good.
No? No. Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Brazier and a second by Pinson. Is there any other questions? Then call for a vote. Sue?
Fraser, yes?
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Cannon, yes.
Dennis, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. On to new business. Item number 1, consider and approve a letter of intent for Yurko expansion project, EDC project. I think, there he is. Hello, Mr. Rock. Tom?
Good evening.
Yeah, this is a letter of intent that Owen has signed on a project that'll include a major expansion of the Yurko facility here in town, assuming that all the details get worked out. And just remind everyone that the methodology we've used here in the past is that the letter of intent is something that's just signed by the staff. And as you see on the letter of intent, it says on the very first, I think, second paragraph on the front page, this is not a binding agreement on either the city's part or the business's part. It's just a framework of a deal that we would move. We're prepared to proceed with the creation of a true development agreement. So we utilize this format to make sure we're kind of on the same page at this stage. Obviously, if there are concerns or issues, it's really important that those get identified now in that process before both the city and the company invest the time and effort in creating an agreement. At the same time, it doesn't mean we have to address every issue here today. Obviously, as you'll see, there's a lot of details to be worked out, but the concept is a really good one, and so this doesn't really require any approval by the council. This is more just an information sharing with you to know which way we're headed. At the same time, as I said, if there's anyone that has any glaring issues or problems, now would be definitely the time to share those with us before we move forward. So with that, Owen's going to give you a brief presentation and then be glad to answer any questions.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. You have to forgive me. I really need a haircut. I wish I could get back to work, but we've been actually working on this project. January of 2019 is when we started it. It was a 2-phase project with Yurko. They were just doing an expansion, and we talked to them about our 80 acres. And we started building Roy Rivers Boulevard and Lee Gildy. So we convinced them to move over there. Well, right now, we did have an LOI originally. That's actually expanded now to 4 phases, working with 2 other South Korean companies. So we're re-looking at the original LOI, and the lady I was actually dealing with originally, she is no longer with the company, so I'm dealing with the owner of the company right now. He can make the decisions. He doesn't have a board. I can go through the LOI real quick. We're talking about 4 phases. We've negotiated 3 of the phases, which we expect to start in 2021. It will be early 2021. Phase 1 will be a 20,000 square foot office and warehouse facility. It'll be a cost about $2.4 million with about $1 million in equipment. The facility will have 20 full-time employees ranging from $15 an hour to $38 an hour. And again, this will start construction in 2021. Phase 2, we're looking at a 40,000 square foot semiconductor parts manufacturing facility. This will cost about $3 million in construction, $3 million in new equipment. And the facility will employ 29 full-time employees, ranging again from $15 an hour to $38 an hour. And we want this to be under construction in 2021 also. And then phase 3 will be a 60,000 square foot building. We'll do semiconducting services, and it will be the value of about $7.2 million for construction, $5 million in equipment. We'll have 85 full-time employees with pay ranging from $15 to $38 an hour. And hopefully this will start in 2021 also. So There are the 3 phases that we've negotiated right now, and this is kind of the overall picture of those 3 phases. Phase 4 is not expected to go into construction until 2026, so we're still in negotiations with them regarding that facility. But that will be 120,000 square feet. It will be a carbon fiber manufacturing facility. The approximate cost will be $14.4 million in construction and $20 million in equipment. It will employ about 190 full-time employees. Again, that we're hoping that will break down in 2026. So when this all changed, I came back to my board. They are shopping this around. They went to 3 other communities on the west side of Austin, and we're in a lot of competition with this. So the only real asset right now, rather than we don't have any Airbnb, our real asset is our 80 acres that we have and the road that's going down there. So I came to my board and I said, hey, would you guys be willing to give away basically 5 acres for phase 1, 5 acres for phase 2, and then I believe it was 10 acres for phase 3. 8 acres for phase 3. So a total of 18 acres. The board said yes, they would like to move forward on it. We talked about the BDC board approved it on Tuesday evening, and so I'm bringing it to you guys now. What we would be looking at would be, of course, granting the land as the phases move forward. And if they don't do it, it'll all be performance-based. If they don't do it, we'll have clawbacks in the contract that we have with these folks. We're also looking at a property tax abatement. He wanted 10-year property tax abatement. And I said, well, that's probably not going to happen. So we got it down to a 5-year property tax abatement. And that will have to be approved by the TERS. So we'll have to get the TERS board on that. So that will be contingent upon the TERS approving that property tax abatement.
But
So
just the city tax part, right?
That's actually city and county.
They want county too?
Yeah, they want county.
TERS tax, yeah.
It's about $80,000 a year for 5 years, is what that comes out to. But again, that will be paid for by the TERS. So that the property taxes TERS and not direct to the county. We'll have to do street extensions, which is already there. We have the road down to the property that they're looking for, and we have the utilities down there. We have sewer and water already down there. So we have that available. And then we said we would do a regional retention pond, which is probably about 3 or 4 years out. It's going to be right in the very west side of the corner of that of our 80 acres. We've already talked, and it's already in the plans that we can actually do a regional retention pond in that area.
Yeah, we were going to do that.
Sorry, Mayor?
We were going to do that anyway, right?
Yeah, we were going to do that. It was all part of the area. We already have one regional retention pond in, and it's a good asset. If we can say to companies, hey, if you move in, you don't have to retain your own water and so on. So if we have a regional one, it can also be an asset to the community.
Bo's really proud of the regional retention pond that we built. Yeah.
Yeah. So initially, really, there's no cash layout as far as the EDC, which is really all we have. The only tool that we really have to play with right now is our land, and use that as our incentive. So that's kind of a brief overview of it. If you want, I'm also working with the state with Skills Development Fund, the Texas Enterprise Zone Program, sales and use tax exemptions, and that'll be all through the state. So I've talked to the state, and they said, yeah, these guys probably qualify for a lot of that. So they're ready to work with us in partnership as soon as we move forward. And actually, I just got an email today from the owner of Jericho, and he says, are we ready to move forward? Because we're ready to move forward. And just to say it again, he said that if I get a good deal on the west side of Austin, I'm going to the west side of Austin, and that's it. And he's going to move everything out, which would be really hurtful for our community, as they're one of the biggest employers around here. So I think it's a good deal. I talked to Tom about it the whole way along. Talked to my board about it, and Brian was involved. Brian was involved in all the back and forth with Jericho. So they've given the sign off. So I'm bringing it to you guys to let you know the direction we're going right now. We'll work out. I say this is very high level right now. We're not down into details. When we get the detailed contract, you guys will be involved the whole way, and Tom will be kept up to speed on it the whole way, and the mayor if he needs to be involved too. So this is kind of where we are. I think it's a great project. I think it's something that we can grow this facility. Jericho is working with 2 other South Korean companies on this facility, which would be phase 2 and 3. So we would be getting other companies coming in too, but they would be the main kind of contractor and developer to do it for these other businesses. And they're very recognizable South Korean businesses that will be locating in there.
Yeah, I would just add a couple things. So for council, I think, Owen, jump in here if you disagree, but basically, I think the important parts for council at the policy level is to understand that this is a unique, I think, big deal, certainly since I've been here, and I don't know how many of these Elgin has done, but unlike some of the other deals we've talked about, this is largely a job creation deal. We're given a significant amount of land and a commitment on tax abatement, but in exchange for jobs. There won't be a lot of direct financial income back to the city's operation like we see when we have a big sales tax generator. But this has an opportunity to create a huge amount of jobs, breadwinner type jobs, if you will, that could support young families, and doesn't really require any kind of cash layout on part of the city. And what funds are being committed are basically TERS funds or EDC funds for this. So it's a little bit different. It's important that everyone understand that there are different elements to this than what we've done, what we'd certainly do with a retail project or something like Seton, where we gave a lot away to get improved health services here in Elgin, but it's a big project and could be a big game changer for us. One thing I want to add to this conversation, Owen and I have talked about, the mayor and Brian Bracewell, the chair of the EDC, has talked about as well, is that we do know, everybody recognizes a little bit the elephant in the room is the fact that we still have the issues that remain the same that I reported to council in January regarding the $2 million loan we made to the EDC to purchase the land originally, and the other $1 million that is tied up in the grant we thought we were going to get through the assisted living project. So I'd already told Owen that I'd have an obligation to say to council that I feel compelled to recommend that those issues have to be addressed before we can do any more major EDC project. Simply, and that doesn't mean the money has to be paid necessarily, but at least they need to be on the same page with the council of when we're going to recover that money, when they're going to pay it back. As you know, that money is part of our fund balance, and ironically, this whole event we're dealing with right now, that, as Charles said, fortunately, we're not dependent on that right now, but you never know. If this event is a good example of why you need to have fund balance, so you have something to fall back on. So we talked about that, and the EDC is on top of that. So before we open to council, I just wanted Owen to respond to that too, and just acknowledge that when the deal comes back, if not with that deal or something with it, it'll be accompanied by something to address this issue.
Sure. Yeah, we had our EDC board meeting on Tuesday of this week, and the board adopted a work plan for myself for the rest of the year. We did a retreat in January. The number one thing for me to do is to work with the board to repay the city the $2 million. Now we've got 3 or 4 different scenarios that we're kind of looking at. So it's kind of, we're going to talk with Charles and Chris, our financial bond advisor, to see which is the best way to save money, basically, as far as whether it's a bond issue or borrow locally or whatever. But we'll get that financial input from those 2 folks, say, okay, which is the best way to borrow this money to pay off the city, and it will be paid off by the end of the year. I think Charles was okay with them by the end of the year. So, but that is the number one priority right now for me as the EDC director, is to get my board down the right track and say, okay, this is what we feel is the best way to do this. So we're not putting anything on the back burner. You guys are number one. So we'll take care of you.
Yeah, I don't want to suggest that money obviously has nothing to do with the Jericho deal or other way around, except to us. It's something that need to be addressed, and they're committed to doing that. So just wanted to get ahead of that in case anybody had a question about it. But I think that's pretty much it. Owen, do you have anything else?
No, that's all I have for now. Unless you have any other questions on the LOI or anything.
It'll be a big challenge to turn as you can see from reading the LOI, there's a lot of different elements to it. So it's going to be a challenge turning that into a legal contract. So I doubt Owen's going to have something back to you next week, but we want to make sure we're on the same page before we invest in that effort. So with that, this doesn't require a vote or anything, Mayor, but we'd just be glad to take any input anybody has.
I've got a couple of questions, Tom.
Go ahead.
Owen, how many total acres? I think you mentioned it. How many total acres is this project going to take?
It will be 18 acres total.
18.
Phase 1, 2, and 3. And then phase 4 will be 12 more acres.
12 more, so total of 30 then.
Yes, but we're looking right now to grant them the first 18 acres. We haven't agreed on a price or a grant for the final 12 acres.
Okay. And then the 50% abatement, that's the TERS funds only, not the City of Elgin funds.
It will be the TERS funds, yes. Right now, because it's in the TERS, the city taxes and the county taxes go into that fund. And it can only be used within that geographical area.
Yeah, I know you know that one. Let's just emphasize that really quick. The TERS, those tax dollars are committed to the TERS. Frankly, that's the only place we can spend them. So that's what they're committing. That's what they'll be getting the abatement from. And either way, if we gave the abatement or not, it won't have any impact on the city's general fund.
And you said it was 80,000 total or 80,000 a year, Owen?
No, it will be 80,000 a year, but that's for all 3 buildings. And we're looking at a total of, let me see here. I had it right in front of me and I've lost it.
Less than 80.
Sounds like $4 million to me.
40, 50, 60. There'll be 120,000 square foot of new buildings. With 134 new jobs will be phase 1, 2, and 3.
As opposed to not doing the deal and possibly losing. How many jobs do they have right now?
I knew that question, man. I just emailed.
I should know. It's always kind of fluctuates with the tech business.
That new facility too, where they've added new jobs, but basically,
company for sure.
Yeah, they really want to. I think they want to stay here, but they will take the best deal that they can get. And they said they will leave if they get another deal, if they get a better deal. So this is kind of where we are. We went back and forth on negotiations, and he's pretty eager with this. And as I say, he emailed me today. Hey, I want to start moving forward and getting a contract. So.
Here.
Yeah.
Just a couple of other things. And Owen didn't say that, but they're also they're trying to partner up with Samsung. That look on your face.
Say that.
And then what I was really impressed with was the cities that they were also going after were coming after them. Some pretty big cities with some pretty big money. And it was cool that they really, to me, seemed like they would like to stay here.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Just a question for clarification. And I appreciate you and the board being committed to the payback on that loan and all. Just my question of clarification, when you say the end of the year, are you talking about end of fiscal year or are you talking about December?
Well, Charles said, he said December, but I'm sure we can do it by October fiscal year, whatever works best for you folks. Whenever Charles says he needs it, we'll have it.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? We'll need to vote on approval for this, for the LOI, correct? Just the
We don't
LOI?
really need, we don't need to, yeah.
No? Okay. Okay. So we'll move on if there's no other comments. All right. Item number 2, consider and approve a COVID-19 program for local small businesses in the amount of $50,000 with a maximum grant of $2,000 to approve applicants. Tom Owen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This Owen's going to speak to this item too. It's a nice little program they've come up with to support local business. Mechanically, I think this too is. I don't know that we necessarily have to vote on this either. It'll require a budget amendment at some point that the council will have to approve, but Owen will brief you on the project.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Well, you all understand the situation we're in right now, and small businesses in our community are really, really hurting. So I talked with Brian Breakswell to kind of say, okay, I'm up with this suggestion. Can I bring something to the board? He says, yeah, bring something and see what we can do. So I talked to Charles. I says, hey, could we afford $50,000 in our budget to do this the grant program? And he says, yeah, you go ahead and see what you can put together. So what I put together was we would set up a grant program for an amount of $2,000 for a maximum fund of $50,000. And it'll remain open until September 30th or until the funds have been exhausted. And I'm sure they'll be exhausted in a couple of days. But what we're trying to do is the priority will be given to small businesses that have closed, laid off employees, limited operations to takeout or delivery. And so we're looking at retail, restaurants, food business, personal care, such as barbershops, nail salons, etc., and childcare businesses. And ineligible businesses, we're looking at home-based businesses would not be allowed to apply for it, non-for-profits, adult-related businesses, chain restaurants, churches, and religious organizations. So they have to be eligible, and this is the eligibility criteria includes 15 employees or less, must be located within the corporate city limits of Elgin, proof of applicant's ownership. The applicant must have all current property and sales tax, must be all paid up, engaged in all activities that are legal under the city and state law. We meet the program technical requirements, which means we can ask for any financial records that we need, and they're registered with the state Texas Secretary of State. Sorry. So really, it's kind of just, I wanted to make this as simple as possible. I ran it through our city attorney, and he was fine with it. There's a lot of other communities doing this too. I believe Bastrop had one there a couple of weeks back. It's not a great lot of money. It's $50,000, but $2,000 to a small little nail salon or a hairdresser can pay off their rent for a month or so, or pay utilities. And we're kind of getting a lot of feedback, and I've got some feedback from Amy Miller, with folks saying, hey, our utilities are high. Can we do something about that? Or is there any kind of help for rent or something like that? It's not going to keep a bunch of businesses in business, but it may help them get through a month or so. And then as they see other assets out there that they can take advantage of, maybe an SBA loan. I know they just refunded that, so that could be very helpful for someone. But if we can get them at least through a month or two, I think that would be very helpful. And it's kind of like saying, hey, to our community, it's saying to the community, we have money and we're willing to spend it on you, rather than just sit back and sit on it and wait to see what happens. So that's kind of the program itself. I'll just kind of open it up for questions, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
It's another item that's be exclusively funded through EDC funds. And Mayor, I misspoke there earlier. We should vote on this. So to vote to approve.
It's over the $10,000, that $20,000. One thing the board did ask was that myself, Amy Miller, and Gina from the chamber, that we oversee the applications and we agree on who gets the funding. Get it out
This
quickly.
is-
We can get,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I decided we can get it. We can get it out. We'll advertise it tomorrow and get the funds out quickly. I don't have to bring it back to the.
Okay. So Tom, you were saying that just to vote on this item, right? Not the LOI.
Right.
I didn't think you said anything about this one yet, but I
Oh,
might have missed.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions about the program?
I do, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
The Main Street Board has also got a grant process going. And I would hate for the same business to get both of those, you know, the EDC one and the Main Street. You know, I was seeing the most you can, I guess, fund is 25 businesses at 2,000 a pop. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And I forget what I read about the Main Street Board, but I think it was 1,000 or 1,500. And like I said, I'd hate for one business to get both of it.
Well, I think priority will go to those who do not have a grant. So if someone already has the 1,500 from the Main Street, they will not get priority. They already have taken the grant. So we would.
Now, I suppose a situation where the business was able to prove they were out a heck of a lot more than 1,500, 2,500, and there wasn't anybody. I think your most lists will fill up really fast, but some of it would be proportional to the business and the loss, right?
Yeah, I think that we would probably put some kind of a matrix together and do some scoring on that.
Yeah, I mean that's details, but yeah, I agree with Juan. You don't want to spread that love out as much as you can.
Yeah. We want to spread.
Yes, Jessica.
One of the things we mentioned as well in the board meeting earlier in the week was that EDC would establish criteria for this particular funding. We may see if the EDC criteria for this particular monies, if it's any way associated with what Main Street Board is doing, maybe try to see if we can make it
Diversify.
various businesses are able to take advantage and we're not looking at duplicates across the board.
Mary, you want Amy's on there. Do you want her to speak to the Main Street? It's a much smaller grant that the money isn't significant. You can speak to that if you'd like.
Amy?
Hello. The Main Street program launched a grant program on Monday. That's a business advertising support program. Downtown businesses that have retail or service oriented operations are eligible for $100 per month to reimburse them for advertising expenses. Their intention is to support the kind of new online efforts that many folks are doing and the additional promotion that businesses are needing to do to try to let their customers know what their operations are. But it is geared towards advertising, and it's a small program. They can't apply more than 1 month if funds are still available, but it's $100 per business for advertising expenses.
Does that answer your question, Jessica, or was it more of a comment of just?
No, I didn't. Yeah, it was just more of a comment. I don't know if question other than if we're looking at establishing criteria, parties may get together to see how different. But I think Amy definitely addressed that. It sounds very different.
Okay. Well, y'all both heard us staff on that. So as y'all go through it, just keep those comments in mind. And we'd like to hear back about how report on the success of that. Excited that we're able to do stuff like that now.
Yeah.
Owen has guaranteed us a list of who all was awarded and what they were awarded, so we would know.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe y'all could do the same with us. Okay. Any other questions? Juan,
I have a question. Is it
Yes, ma'am.
is it limited $2,000 per business, or like you have several employees, you have to have 15 employees or less. So say if I had 4 employees downtown, could each employee get it, or is it just for one $2,000 for one business?
It'll be per business, not per employee.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay. Anything else? Juan, did you feel satisfied about the answer to your question?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I have a question. I don't know if I just missed it, but who is going to make the decision on who gets the grant? Is it the
It'll be
EDC board or?
No, it'll be myself, Amy Miller, and Gina from the chamber.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the COVID-19 grant program through the EDC.
So
So
move.
moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Brazier and a second by Pinson. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? And I'll call for a vote, Sue.
Frazier, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Dennis, yes.
All right. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Owen, thank you, sir. And Amy, thank you. Resolution regarding item number 3, resolution regarding a financing agreement for the purpose of procuring vehicles, rolling stock, and equipment. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a financing agreement. We need council to approve to acquire some equipment we've had plugged into the budget. Charles has figured out a way for us to afford it and use some excess funds we have. So I'll let him lead the conversation.
Okay, Mayor, Council, when I was preparing the budget last year, there was a lot of requests for equipment replacements and additional equipment. And the first one was a motor grader for the street department that was going to cost about $230,000 or $320,000, sorry. And then of course we needed to replace one of the backhoes and a few other pieces of equipment. And so my plan was to take all those equipment, roll them into a lease purchase agreement sometime in March. For the most part, these were pieces of equipment that were going to be funded through the general fund. And if we set it up on a lease purchase on a 5-year payout plan, it's possible to use the debt portion of the tax rate to pay off the debt service on that loan. We've been building up a little bit of a surplus in that particular fund for the debt service, the INS fund. When it came around March or April, when I started thinking about it and realized how much we had in surplus of that fund, it made more sense to go ahead and try to get additional equipment. So now we have it set up to where we have 17 pieces of equipment, including now 3 fully equipped police vehicles for about $852,000. I did talk to the bank about a 5-year loan, and they really weren't interested, but Government Capital, who I've worked with before, gave us a rate of 3.27% over 5 years. And what I wanted to do, what I asked them to do, is structure it so that initial, usually you have a balloon payment at the end, but I have it set up to where we have a balloon payment at the beginning of $320,000 that is sitting in that INS fund right now. And that will stretch the payments will be a lot lower over the succeeding years, and really won't impact the debt rate for property tax going forward. So basically, we can get $852,000 of equipment. It's 17 pieces of equipment. Some of it is new, like one of the things was a mini excavator, which the guys have been asking for a long time because it's a much smaller piece of equipment and it's can get into very tight places and is much more functional than a large backhoe. So that, in addition to police vehicles, and the other thing that we put in there is 3 pretty good sized mowers that actually are designed to mow along kind of vertical slopes. Right now, that causes kind of a problem um, for the mowing crews, particularly in the big wide area on the medians and the side roads of the 290 and so forth. So this is much more stable. It practically cuts the mowing time in half on those things. So I thought that was because of the productivity. I thought that would be a good thing to get. So with that, the new backhoe, the police vehicles and everything, the total's about $852,000 if I remember correctly. This will be financed over 5 years. The bulk of the funds will be coming from the INS fund, which is already set for this year and for next year. If we keep the same rate, that will be folded into the cost for the next 5 years. So it's pretty much paid for through that mechanism, and is going to actually upgrade our fleet considerably and result in a lot more efficiency and economy for the crews that are doing the work on the roads and in the utilities. So all what we're asking for is that you approve the agreement with government capital for the loan. We've got the equipment already priced out and all the specifications, everything. We're ready to go if we can get approval for the loan.
Okay. Questions, council?
I do. I've got one, Mayor. Charles, that 12-foot trailer for $6,400, is that special or something?
Yeah, what?
Is it cruised or something? That 12-foot trailer, utility trailer, Central Texas trailers for
There's a
park.
box in it.
Is it covered or what?
Mm-hmm.
A box trailer, like a utility trailer?
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to,
Pretty good price.
are you on there?
Okay. Charles, we used to have to rent a scraper, a blader with a blade. Do we still have to do that?
Yeah, we still use that in maintenance really of the alleyways, I think more than anything else, but any of the gravel roads and dirt roads that we have.
Okay, so would it be cost efficient to buy one or not?
Yeah, the one we have now is quite old, and I think the last maintenance cost I had on that was about $7,000, and it's what, about 15, 20 years old, and it just needs to be replaced.
The motor grader?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing is older than 15 years old. I know that. All right. Anything else? Any other questions? The lease blade that we have now, that one like that, or is that that it?
The what? Excuse me?
The blade that I've been seeing them drive around, I almost fell over when I saw City
No,
of Elgin, brand new blade.
That one we had to lease because the other one was inoperable.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That'll be the new. Okay, we're gonna end up having that, but not that exact one, right?
No.
Okay. That you have to remember a lot of things to appreciate Elgin having a new blade like that. All right. Any questions? Any other questions regarding? Sorry. Yeah, regarding this resolution on item 3. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Sorry, who was that? Raise your
Susie
hand.
got in there.
There.
Susie got in there.
Susie. Okay, sorry. They'll all sound the same when I'm not looking. All right, I've got a motion by Pinson and a second by Arriaga. Any other questions? I'll call for a vote. Mary?
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Fraser, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 4, a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, approving an escrow agreement in the amount of $1,209,357 with LGI Homes Texas LLC for partial construction of improvements to County Line Road pursuant to a cost participant agreement between the two parties dated September 26, 2019, authorizing the mayor to execute said agreement and making certain findings related thereto. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a approval of formal approval and escrow agreement that is a product of a development agreement we had already signed with the developers of the Homestead development.
So hungry. What you want? Whatever, yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, we're Homestead is the a single family development being built currently on County Line Road that's immediately north of the football field and the high school, about 400 homes. I forget the exact number. If you recall, we had already reached a development agreement with them that called for them to contribute a share of the cost for upgrading County Line Road to a 5-lane road with curb and gutter and sidewalks out in that area. So they've already agreed to do this. This resolution tonight just simply authorizes the creation of an escrow account, where they will deposit this money and it'll sit there until we're ready to build the road. Now, the sidebar to that is that our development agreement specifically says that we'll start on the road in at least 5 years. If we don't, they get this money back. But the way the development agreement works is they're committed to providing a little over $1.2 million for that road project. They have to, I think they're filing, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure it's 2 plats. Basically, the function is they have to deposit a portion of this money every time they file a final plat. As you know, final plat means when they file that, then they can begin building houses. So in each case, we've allowed the developer the opportunity to get a house on the ground and not have to pay all this money up front. So, but Homestead is ready to get their first plat approved and first final plat approved and start building homes out there. So they're ready to deposit this money with us, and we need to create this escrow account so we'll have a place to hold the money. I just say on a related matter, this is we have the 3 developments that are occurring between the intersection of FM 1100 and County Line Road. They're right at the high school going north. Homestead will contribute $1.2 million. Harvest Ridge, which is the Braun Homes development, they'll be contributing 1.6 million. And then Peppergrass is the 300 home development right on the what would that be? The northeast corner of FM 1100 and County Line Road, which is, they're doing site work right now. They'll be contributing $750,000. So that's $3.5 million that we have committed by the private developers to help us rebuild that section of County Line Road. This escrow agreement just allows us to start collecting the first part of that. So be glad to answer any questions if anybody had any.
Anybody not want 1.2 million? All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I just say, I'm sorry, Mayor, I could add in,
Well,
we've
you're
already,
trying to your own deal here.
we've already started the design work as council remembers. We're doing the preliminary design right now. We plan to, because of this commitment of these funds, we plan to start getting that section of the road built sooner than later. Hopefully we'll be building it at the same time all the development is going in there, and we'll do all the construction at one time. So,
Yeah,
so hopefully
maybe
we'll be back for
a while. Be bad for a little while, but it'll we won't be as long potentially, right?
Right, that's right.
And
So
and,
were the new, I'm
ahead,
sorry,
of course. Go ahead.
were the new stoplights put in considering the fact that we're gonna do all of this road construction?
Not guaranteed, but it could help. Right, Tom?
Well, say that again for us. I'm sorry.
Well, the new stoplights that are out there by the high school, were they put in considering the fact that we're gonna be doing this construction?
Oh,
Or
well,
those can't be
some,
moved?
those, according to TxDOT, those are basically temporary, that when they eventually take the curve out of 1100, I assume those will come out, but TxDOT, temporary can be 25 years too.
They
So
wouldn't put them in there if it wasn't going to be, if it was going to get done that tomorrow.
That's right.
So
we'll be planning around them. Yes, that's right.
I was
Yeah.
surprised to see those going up.
yeah, I think we all were. Okay, so I'll and this was originally phase 2, correct, Tom? But
I'm
we're
sorry.
just expediting it. This side of the project on County Line Road that we're going to start was originally phase 2 of that.
It's actually phase 3. It's the farther northern end, but it's because we've got all these private funds now that
That's where the money's coming from.
we're moving it up. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if anybody doesn't have any questions, then I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Creatures.
Second.
First, and Juan, was that you second?
I second. Mary.
Oh. Okay. Got a motion by Dennis and a second by Pinson. Any questions? All right, then I'll entertain the vote for us.
Dennis, yes.
Frazier, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
All right, that passes unanimous. Now, when everybody says that we're crazy for letting all those homes go in out there on 1100, you can tell them, or County Line Road, you can tell them why.
So we
Okay.
get a straight line?
That's right. Item number 5, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Article 6 of Solicitors and Peddlers, Sections 8 through 140 through 8-160 Code of Ordinances, City of Elgin, Texas, by deleting this section in its entirety and replacing it with new Peddlers, Solicitors, and Vendors Ordinance, providing a savings clause, fulfilling conflicting ordinances and resolutions, and establishing an effective date. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually ordinance amendment being recommended by Chief South, so I'm going to let him speak to it.
All right, Chief.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, so the ordinance has not been updated, I don't think ever in May, at least not in the recent past. So Chief Taylor started last year working on the updates, working with other cities and their current ordinances. So we've updated all the language, the definitions, and particularly the application process so that it includes the opportunity for us to have the people who apply to provide criminal background checks to us prior to us approving those, which is a significant change in the current ordinance and affords us the opportunity to provide a better service in ensuring that those who we approve these applications for are actually individuals who are safe to be in our community.
So we're effectively raising the bar on door-to-door salesmen in town, right, Chief?
That's correct. The ordinance as it was very outdated, and we're trying to match and update what we really need to do to provide the safety for our community that we really need to do. And so this ordinance and the changes we made does that, and I feel it's an appropriate change, and I support it.
Okay, any questions, council? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved.
I'm sorry, the ordinance.
Right. So moved.
I second.
Motion by Councilman Pinson and a second by Councilman Vega. Any questions? Then we'll call for a vote. Mary?
Pinson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Dennis, yes.
Bridger, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 6, a resolution of the City of Elgin, City Council of the City of Elgin, Texas, authorizing the mayor to execute a contract in the amount of $826,214 with Royal Vista Incorporated for construction of central lift station for the city's wastewater system and making certain findings related thereto. This is the contract portion of the approved bid we did last time. Is that correct?
That's right, Mayor. This is this project's been on council's agenda a number of times, starting with the property acquisition. But this, if you recall, a couple months ago, we awarded the bid. This is simply formally authorizing the mayor to sign the contract on the bid that we presented before. So it's actually an item been sitting around for most of this COVID situation, waiting for us to have a meeting. So it's just a formality.
Okay. Questions, anybody? Y'all understand the project over there, lift station on Central that we moved over?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, if there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Mary.
No.
I've got Mary on the motion. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll
Second.
second.
I heard Forrest and somebody else. Sorry. Maybe y'all can put your hands up when y'all do it next time. All right, motion by Councilmember Pinson and a second by Dennis. Is there any other comments? And we'll call for a vote.
Pinson, yes.
Vega,
Pinson, yes.
Dennis,
Sorry.
yes.
Bridger, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes. That passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Item number 7, a resolution by the City of Elgin, Texas, responding to the application of CenterPoint Energy Intech South Texas Division to increase rates under the gas liability infrastructure program, suspending the effective date of this rate application for 45 days, determining that the meeting at which the resolution was adopted complied with the Texas Open Meetings Act, making such other findings and provisions related to the subject, and declaring an effective date. Tom?
Mayor, you know as much about this as I do. This is the routine thing for those who've been on council for a while. CenterPoint's filed for a rate increase. It's nothing really the city has in the system. I think throws this bone to cities that you can suspend the rate increase for 45 days, but at the end of the day, we don't really have any control over it. Everybody always exercises this right to push it off as long as they can, but it's not really a material issue for us.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can't dispute it. We've been through this before, unless we can join a lawsuit protest against it, and that's about it. And
that is the one thing you asked, Chris, you'd asked earlier. we do periodically have groups get together and we join a lawsuit about it, but we haven't heard on any this time. So it doesn't look like anyone even contesting it.
All right. Well, anybody have any questions on that?
Do they go up every year?
Feels like
Do
it,
they have
doesn't
a
it?
rate increase every year?
Not exactly.
Every
They
year.
get two year, right?
I think it's every other year, but I know I've been here 3 years. I know this is the second time we've gone through this since I've
At
been
least,
here.
yeah.
There you go.
I think it's every year, whether they want to or not. They just put it out there.
Yeah.
Now, let's disconnect our gas.
What's that?
I said, let's disconnect our gas, everybody, like they did in another town.
That's right.
They did the propane.
Yeah, that's what it was, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution as presented, seeing how we have no other choice.
So moved.
Second.
Dang it, I meant to look that time. Motion by Brazier and second by Sue.
Vincent.
Benson.
It was Mary.
Benson.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary. Brazier and Benson.
Yeah.
Next time we're gonna get red and green cards.
Mhm.
All right, then if there's no other questions, entertain the vote. Sue?
Frazier, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Gonzalez, yes.
Cannon, yes.
Benson, yes.
Vega, yes.
Dennis, yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you, council. No executive session. I assume no announcements, right, Tom?
Not really. I guess I would just share with the group. I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us and pulling this off. If your experience is like ours, the more we use a system like this, the better we get at it, or I certainly do. So I appreciate any suggestions or comments or notes after the meeting, if how we might do better next time, or anything that would help you, or any observations you might make. We'll try to get better at it. I think we should assume we're probably going to do meetings like this for at least the next couple of months. Hopefully it'll be sooner than that. We'll be able to get back together, but let us know any suggestions or comments you have about how we can do better. So thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, council. I'm going to adjourn us at 7:48. See you next time.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.